remember if I cried or if I laughed. I just remember I want my money back. I can't remember if it sucked or if I had a blast. All I know is at the end of the show, when the credits rolled, it said Filmtopiacast 3000.
Hello and welcome to this very, very special podcast. We are Filmtopiacast 3000. I'm your host, Greg McIver, and with me as always is
Nicki Boom Boom.
But we're not just Filmtopiacast 3000. Today is a very special episode because with us is the venerable Doolin Dalton from NerdtopiaCast. Say hi, Doolin.
I was to understand there would be pie and punch.
If you read the fine print, then you will have realized that everything I say is a lie, except for that, and that, and that, and that, and that. So,
Damn it, I'm out.
And on and on and on. No, come on, back. Come on, man. We're going to have fun today. This is going to be a great podcast. All right, fantastic. So we got the great and wonderful Doolin Dalton here, the originator of NerdtopiaCast.com and the podcast.
Great and wonderful.
The great.
I'm picking up. That's the first time that I've ever been called that.
You are a god, man.
Dalton the Great and Powerful.
Dalton the Great and Powerful. So
I was about to say Oz ruined his took his life.
Oh god.
No, but I do appreciate you having me on the show, Greg. Greg and I, if you didn't get a chance to sit in on it, Greg and I sat down to do an episode of NerdtopiaCast back in its original run, like way back last September.
Absolutely.
We sat down and had a little bit of fun on episode 22, No Insurance Plan for the Batman. It was a good time, and I'm happy to be back here doing another podcast with you.
Well, we're happy to have you. And to your left, well, actually, he's not in any of these rooms.
Your metaphysical left.
Your metaphysical left. We have a very good friend of all of ours.
Reporting from Attica.
Reporting from Attica. The great and wonderful Rick Rodriguez, my fellow writer with the long-running series Critic's Crossing. Welcome in, Rick.
we all await
Yes, and I want to welcome all of you to Critic's Crossing.
Thank you.
And our podcast, this special hybrid.
Absolutely, this special hybrid. Rick has been kind enough to join us in our chat today. And what exactly are we going to chat about, guys? What's on the docket for today's podcast?
Oil futures.
Oil futures?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, guys. Anything else that you wanted to cover?
I thought we were going to talk. We're not talking about feet.
Feet.
I really like feet.
Oh,
how much do you like feet?
Are you Quentin Tarantino?
Oh.
Because that's awesome if we got Quentin Tarantino on the show.
No,
Specifically
though,
for
man,
feet.
Ugh.
The year is 2013,
yes.
Obviously, and it is the birthday of an American icon. It's been kind of a rough couple of years. If you've been a Superman fan, a lot of his either big screen or small screen adaptations have really disappointed some of the fans in the past years. There's been a lot of speculation, and people have said that there really hasn't been a good Superman movie since arguably Superman 2. So here we are now. They made the Salkinds made 3 and 4, and those were huge letdowns.
Right.
But then in the following years, there was a Superboy TV series that had something of a cult following. It didn't quite take off. Lois and Clark in the 90s, and then in the more recent years, Smallville. So Superman's made a lot of appearances on the small screen, and then in 2006, it turned out to it was a lot of disappointment. And I don't think there's anybody here that would argue the fact that Superman Returns was a pretty big letdown.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm on the fence as far as I agree with you. It is a letdown. I don't think it's quite as awful as some people say that it is. I think there are some admirable moments in the movie, but ultimately, yes, I do believe the movie is a failure, absolutely.
I feel like it kind of gets the shit kicked out of it a lot more than it deserves to. I actually liked it when it came out, so I was actually surprised when people were like all of a sudden kind of declaring it like really boring and like just completely, just like unoriginal, and like I never thought, and I always kind of was like, well, didn't we all know that it wasn't going to be original? That it was, as a part of the continuation, considering they're playing that theme and it's Marlon Brando talking in the trailer. So it felt like what everybody was excited for ended up being what nobody wanted. And the biggest gripe I heard at the time, without getting too deep into Returns, because we want to talk about the new one, is that Superman didn't punch anybody. And I always thought
not one punch thrown.
And I always was like, really, is that important? Is it really that important that Superman didn't just like punch something? I don't know. But either way, with Man of Steel, everyone that complained that certainly gets their wish.
Zack Snyder heard one thing.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you guys want some punching?
Punching.
You guys want some punching?
They almost called it the Man of Punching, but they changed their mind at the last
days,
moment.
Clark, you're going to grow up, and you're going to punch a lot of shit.
Really?
There should have been the speech that Kevin Costner made. One of these days, Clark, some people are meant for greater things, and some people are meant just to go around and punch shit really, really hard.
Hell yeah.
Can I just put him in a chokehold?
No, son.
Why punch that bully when you can punch Metropolis?
Exactly. Punch a whole city to death. All
right.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. But generally speaking, Superman Returns was sort of a kind of like, it didn't fulfill everyone's big expectations for Superman. And then, through the years, it was anticipated that it was going to be a sequel, that they would still go through with a sequel, but then that sort of the air died out on that thing. It just like, all of a sudden, the crickets started chirping away, and then I remember reading rumors that like comic book writer Mark Waid was trying to do something, and Alex Ross was trying to do something, and then all of a sudden, it got announced that Nolan and Goyer had gotten the gig and all that stuff.
Well,
and then they hired Zack Snyder, and then here we are.
Wasn't Man of Steel originally, when they were kicking around that title, wasn't that originally going to be the sequel for Superman Returns? I could be off.
And I remember the synopses and like the announcements and stuff. It's like it was going to be called Superman, subtitled The Man of Steel. So
well,
it didn't seem like it was a stretch to the. Actually, there's a synopsis online, which maybe we can link to on the website, of what it was. And what it was going to be Brainiac. Brainiac was going to come to Earth.
Wrestle with polar bears.
There was actually going to be a conflict between Superman and his son, because somehow the son was going to be affected by Brainiac, because Brainiac was actually going to get declared a Superman that's like, what are you doing? Helping. It's our role to rule these people.
What do you want to say?
We have poor Nick. Poor Nick's been back there. Go ahead.
So listen, I was just wanted to say another reason that didn't happen, I'm sure, is because of what Marvel's been doing and the fact that DC knows, hey, we need to kind of get our stuff together and try to get a Justice League movie out.
Right.
So therefore, Superman.
Yeah, but that's a little premature, because I think they really didn't realize what Avengers was going to be until Avengers came out. And that's when they really started scrambling.
I think they could see the writing on the wall once Marvel started to assemble all the jigsaw pieces that would become the Avengers with the movies prior to that, with Thor, with Captain America. And so I don't know the production history of this movie, but of Man of Steel. But I have to assume that if at one point they intended for it to be a sequel, at some point when they saw Marvel kicking their butts, they went, oh, hey, actually, let's reboot this and try to get a team together now.
It really began around Dark Knight. Dark Knight came out.
Yeah.
And that's really the thing. And that made $1 bazillion. And so they started rethinking what to do with Superman. That's really when it started. The idea of Man of Steel really faded away. The Man of Steel in Bryan Singer's incarnation faded away.
Right.
The Dark Knight proved that a superhero movie could take the top spot, like Titanic level, and so now it started people thinking, and this was before obviously Avengers came out, so that does make sense that they would concentrate, well shit, if Batman can do this, what can Superman do if we do it properly?
Yeah, right? I mean, don't forget, it was only like 2009, 10, when it got announced that Nolan and Goyer were going to be producing and writing Man of Steel. That's a good 2-year effort where it was like, what do we do here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't figure it out, and we got a movie anyway. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm being very harsh, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Well, let's get into that because
yeah.
we're like 11 minutes
Yeah.
in.
No. We'll eventually talk about Man of
episode.
Steel. Next episode, we'll talk about it. All right, no, let's talk about the story. Doolin, why don't you lead off? Just let's give the audience a general idea of what this movie is about before we get into spoiler territory.
Okay. All right. Well. All right. So we won't. Okay. So we won't jump. All right. So we're not putting the spoiler label up yet.
Not yet.
Okay. All right. So spoiler-free plot synopsis. We start out. Of course, with any good origin story, we have to start at the beginning, and that's what they're doing here. They're effectively rebuilding the origin.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to see a little bit of Krypton, which is cool. And this is a different. I really enjoyed Snyder's vision of Krypton. Visually, it was new. It wasn't like anything we'd seen before, especially not as it pertains to Krypton, because all we've ever really seen of Krypton at this point was just the giant ice. It was the fucking ice sculpture planet, really. That's really all it really has been up until this point.
True.
So we got to see this world that was rich with life.
In movies.
Yeah, it's in movies. Yeah, in movies. But even in some of the comic books, not all of them, but in some of them I've read, Krypton has been very bland. And I can understand glossing over those details, but in this, because it's not the visual aspect of it is not that important. But for a movie, it has to be big. It has to be, especially for a summer popcorn movie. You've got to show, don't tell, and that's what they did here. So we see this world that's rich with life, and as it turns out, they have effectively exhausted their resources, so much so to the point that the Kryptonians have destroyed themselves trying to colonize other worlds. So that's kind of where the story picks up. We have Jor-El, who is the world's top scientist, and General Zod, played by making movies, making songs, and fighting around the world.
The Gladiator, the one and only.
Oh my God, it's Jor-El! I've never seen a Kryptonian before. Right. Little South Park reference. So then we have.
We have to copyright them.
True.
I don't think that's true.
So we have the General Zod. Okay, I've never seen Boardwalk Empire.
That's how he sounds on Boardwalk. I've actually met the guy in real life, and you want to know how Michael Shannon sounds in real life? This is how he sounds.
Like
Hey, I'm Michael Shannon. Hey, do you mind if I borrow this marker right here? Can you imagine him sounding like this in Man of Steel? Hey,
I will find him!
I will find him! That would have been
I think that would have been great.
Oh, yeah, that would have been hilarious. A very different movie, though.
Especially if it was just like a full-on De Niro, just like, I heard some things, Lara. You're giving me answers, but you're not giving me the right answers. I heard some things.
God.
So
anyway,
so we have General Zod, who has effectively staged a rebellion against the Kryptonian Council, which I guess is the high ruling council for the entire planet. They obviously have a one world government set up there, and basically through all of their whining and their bitching and their bickering amongst themselves, they've never gotten anything done. You've got the smartest man in the world saying, "Hey guys, the planet's kind of fucked. You want to do something? Well, let's we'll get the council together and we'll talk about it." We don't have time for that shit right now.
Because we gotta start fighting around the world.
So they don't listen to Jor-El. In the meantime, we learned that Jor-El and Zod were close friends at one point, and they don't. I'm disappointed they didn't go into that a little bit more. I don't think we've moved into spoiler territory yet, but we're
we might be giving a little too much away in the prologue, which is, this is all.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we'll stop the spoilers, or we'll put the spoiler alert up there once we get into Earth.
Okay.
Essentially, it's an origin story again for Superman,
right?
Where and it takes the kind of structure that they did in Batman Begins, where it's the way Bruce Wayne was on a journey, Clark Kent is on a sort of loner, traveling around the world journey, where he's just trying to figure out what he wants to do and what he's going to be, and intermittently in the movie through flashbacks, we're seeing the formation of what the formation of his conflict of having been an alien, of learning who he is, learning where he comes from, with versus his birth parents who raised him and love him, and what is he meant to do, and so on and so forth. So essentially, it's rise of a hero story, and as everyone can tell from the previews, Zod is not just in the beginning of the movie. Things happen where there's lots of action.
Yes.
And Superman must prove he is a man of steel.
Oh!
You like that?
Look at it there. I like it.
Look at that.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So in the final moments of Jor-El's life, and I hate to give away spoilers without saying, but Jor-El's going to die here, folks. He's not making
Does
it out.
he die? Really?
I know. I'm sorry if you haven't seen the movie. I just ruined it for you.
My
In
God.
the final moments of Jor-El's life, before Zod comes and effectively comes after him, he is after something that they refer to as the Codex.
Right.
Within the Kryptonian birthing matrices.
Sounds like a watch to me, but whatever. Hey, my new codex. But continue.
So he grabs his codex and he shoots his son out of the planet with it before it blows up. Zod shows up. A scuffle ensues. Zod is locked into the Phantom Zone. Zod is locked into the Phantom Zone after he's captured by the Kryptonian Council, which really doesn't matter because about 2.5 minutes later, the planet blows up.
Yeah. Bad timing.
Yeah, so it really is nice of them to that was essentially his punishment for staging a rebellion was, well, I guess you get to survive the destruction of our world.
To live.
He had a 2-minute punishment, essentially, because as soon as he left, it blew up and he was freed. We'll spend 2 minutes in the cycle reformation.
You think about what you've done,
Matrix.
mister.
All right. Well, so that's the prologue, and that's essentially what happens, and it's a very, very imaginative and very immersive twist on Krypton,
Absolutely,
the mythology of
yeah.
Krypton. Yeah. Well, hold on. The movie gets started, and so now here we are. It's 2013. This is like a Superman movie that everyone was begging or like was anticipating. It's already like a super big success.
Yep.
It seems, except critically.
Absolutely.
Seems very, very mixed critically. So, what does everyone here think about that? What does everyone here think of the movie?
Doolin, you go ahead.
Starting with Doolin, yeah.
All right, you want me to start it off? Okay. I thought it was a good, solid summer popcorn movie. Very visually striking. You had just enough character development in there to make the action scenes more poignant. I felt that there was enough focus on Clark to keep me interested, and I believe that General Zod was a very well written villain, because to have a really well written villain, you actually have to feel for the villain a little bit, and I kind of felt like they did. Like he didn't come off as just a prick. He didn't come off as just the mill douchebag. What he was doing, he felt was the right thing to do to preserve his race. In another person's book, he is a hero. So that was some of the strong points that I liked about it. And here we are going with a few minor spoilers in here, a few points that I did like about the movies. In order to weaken Superman in certain scenes, they did not resort to, nor did they mention the word kryptonite. I really appreciated that. It's this weird green rock. It's not even important.
Yeah, I think I gave that to my ex-girlfriend.
Oh, nice. Ba-da-ba-doo. Nice.
They didn't resort to kryptonite, which I really liked, because that as a plot device that is grossly overused. And they also got rid of the most ridiculous piece of the Superman mythos, which was the fact that Lois Lane, despite having an intimate relationship with Superman, does not know who Clark Kent is because he's wearing glasses.
Yeah.
They did away with that.
Yeah,
finally.
that was nice. I didn't mind that.
I didn't mind that at all.
Yes, I love this realistic documentary take on Superman. Sarcasm. But we'll get to me.
No room for fantasy.
I felt like there were a few things that bothered me minorly. Just little things like, it took Superman 33 years to learn and develop his powers, and it took Zod 2 days. He had a little bit of trouble at first, and then by the time his second go around on Earth came around, he's like, "Oh, okay, I've got the hang of this heat vision thing. I've got the hang of this flying thing. I got this."
Well, I think with that though, I mean, how long did Superman really work on developing his actual powers? I mean, right up to the oil. That's a
problem I have. Go ahead.
Right up to the oil rig thing, it didn't seem like he had done much of anything other than rescue that bus at one time. So I think they're pretty much on an even keel as far as when they were figuring out. Because when he's in the Arctic, he doesn't even know how to fly at that point. He just leaps at first, and then he begins to fly. So they're really about on the same timetable for the most part.
Well, that's kind of one of my problems with the movie is that it's an origin story and it's relearning a lot of stuff. This speaks to a larger problem I'm having with superhero movies now, where everything is so real, and I'm like, it's not real. That guy's in a stupid costume and he's flying around. Like,
I'll let you know, sir, that is a Kryptonian battle suit.
Yeah,
very much.
There is a specific
manufactured
purpose.
in Wisconsin, and that's it. But I just feel like in this sort of like rush to give credibility to the superheroes, it's kind of erasing a lot of what is fun and imaginative about them. I can do away fine with the whole glasses thing. I don't really give a shit. Who cares?
Right.
That's fine. But in terms of, it feels like they eliminated Superman learning about his powers, probably because they thought, well, those scenes might be too fun or hokey.
Right.
So we'll cut that out and keep the angst element. And I was like, well, you know what? I think that's a pretty vital element if you're going to do a Superman story, especially if you're so-called doing it realistically. I want to see when he first realizes that he can lift a bus. When he does the bus rescue, it's very much like, yeah, I can do this, so I'm going to do it. When was that first moment when that occurred to him? When was the, first time he, shot the rays out? When was the first time he realized he could just run fast or leap or whatever? That's missing to me, and that's a smaller point of what else I think is missing in the formation of Superman / Kal-El / Clark Kent's origin in this movie. I don't know.
Well,
anybody else?
Yeah, no, I have to disagree with you on that point, just because I did think that the scene where he does finally suit up and start playing with his powers, it did seem to me like that was a really fun scene, and a much needed fun scene in this movie, because this movie's very, Nolan / Zack Snyder-esque, like dark sepia-toned, angsty brooding, as you've said. But the scene where he is up playing with his powers in the Arctic, I thought was like, it put a smile on my face to see somebody smiling about learning what they could do.
Did he go woohoo? I don't remember.
I don't think there's a woohoo.
Okay, I would have.
He does a bit of like a yeah, and he gives
okay. I'll accept a yeah, but I would have been pissed if there was a woohoo. That's Spider-Man's thing,
right?
But what Doolin's talking about is that it took him so long to realize that. And what I'm talking about is the fact is there's no scenes and or moments of him discovering the fact that he has powers at all.
No, also keep in mind though, like if I can just like real quick, like my issues with the movie, like if I'm to point these things out, I'm really nitpicking because I really did enjoy the movie as a whole. Start picking that apart because it really didn't bother me that much.
Fair enough.
It did me, frankly. I guess just as declared, this is Rick. I'm very, very mixed on the movie. I think it's a well-made movie. I think, visually, I loved the Krypton stuff.
Russell Crowe did an interview about that. You want to know what he said?
Okay.
Were you not entertained?
I get it. I love it.
I would throw fruit at him and say, yes, I was. Speaking of Russell Crowe, I was like, the second he started being like Kick-Ass Jor-El, and I know maybe somebody will be like, he's a scientist, how is he a bruiser now? I'm like, well, because it's fucking Russell Crowe. So I want to see that. I didn't want to see Russell Crowe hanging about like Marlon Brando did. I want to see him being Russell Crowe. And I got to see him being Russell Crowe. To the point that when they started doing all the spoiler alert, whatever, he's leaping off of the dragonfly and like diving into the water pool. I was just like, Jesus Christ! Like, I could watch a whole action movie with Jor-El. Like, fuck Superman. Like, I'm doing that at this point. Like, Like, this guy trying to save his planet, like, holy shit, this is great, you know? So I really, really, really love the Krypton stuff. But I feel like there's like a second act missing once it gets to Superman. And once it's him on his journey, and it's doing the flashbacks of, like, a formation of his character. Every concern from Pa Kent's mouth is about, like, don't, you have to hide yourself. Like, you have to protect yourself. You're different. It's going to be a really big deal when you show up. So, you know, at the same time, I'm really helping your ego here, but not yet. You know, keep the rabbit in the hat, son. Keep the pecker in the pants, all that stuff.
Oh,
like,
wow.
There's nothing about morality. There's nothing about ethics. Why? What is the difference between right and wrong? There was nothing about that.
I don't think that the movie needed to spell that out for us, though. I don't think you needed a moment where he literally sits him down,
Well,
this is right, this is wrong. I think I read between the lines that you could see that he loved his son, that he cared about him, that he was taking care of him, helping him grow up.
I can do an origin story where Hannibal Lecter had very, very loving parents, and he's also played by Kevin Costner and whatnot. But if I don't show what made him good or bad, I've kind of, like, done a disservice to the telling of a story.
I do think they showed what made him good.
Arthur doesn't just learn from Merlin how to swing a sword and be a king. He learns right from wrong. He learns his character.
But I saw Costner's character of Pa Kent as a character that did, do that for him, that took care of him, that raised him to be a good person.
That's
because
different.
Costner's person was
nurturing is not teaching.
I was able to read between the lines. I saw that this was a character that was going to do that for him. I didn't actually need to hear it myself.
I gotta agree with Greg. On that point. Just as a whole, I agree with you two, Rick, in that I think it's a well-made but flawed movie for some reasons, which my reasons might be a little different. That's not one of them, though. You see Pa Kent being a good person, and I think it's just kind of assumed that those values are transferred over to Clark.
Problem. That's lazy. That to me is
there's other
the idea story.
There's other lazy writing things that I'm griping with in this movie.
All right. I mean, well, there we go. Well, let me add that. It's just to me that's like lazy writing. That's just you get the idea. You get the idea of storytelling.
What type of scene would convey that?
I was just gonna say Field of Dreams.
Oh,
he's a Field of Dreams. Wasn't he such a nice guy to those Indians? See, that's where Clark gets his character.
What would you have wanted him to do, though?
That's not enough.
What scene was missing, though?
Like, what could he do to show him what's right from wrong?
Oh, here we go. The old, give me a scene, write it, right now.
Here's a piece of paper, you son of a bitch. Write it down.
Just a simple question. What could they have added that wouldn't have felt too preachy and like, okay, we get it?
I'm telling you, but you're not listening. That scene where he teaches him right from wrong, not just in self-defense, but in general. It's like, Clark, he should have learned, there should have been a moment where he learns he has powers.
Okay,
I'm on board with that.
I agree with that.
And then it's about, Clark, what do you do with these powers? This is what would be right. Like, this is what helps people. This is what doesn't help people. Teaching him ethics, like our parents taught us ethics.
I just don't think the movie needs to spell it out, though. I don't think it needs to pander to the audience by, like, hey, audience, do you know what right and wrong is?
It does. It does, because here's why. An origin story for a superhero movie is essentially a biopic, right?
Yes.
We're learning about a character's journey. And if we don't learn essential things about that character, then we don't know enough about the character. And I don't like it just taking it for granted that it's Superman, he's good. But, no, you need to do your job as a storyteller.
I thought they did. I didn't see it as laziness. I thought of it as economy of storytelling. It was there. You could see it was there. They just didn't talk about it, and they just didn't dwell on it too long. But it did it for me.
They took it for granted. That's what they did.
I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree, but I'm
not agreeing to that.
Agree to disagree, goddammit!
Son of a bitch.
Well, Nick, let's jump to you. You were saying you're sort of mixed about the movie, like Rick, but maybe for different reasons.
Definitely. I do really respect the world building that they put into Krypton. Some of those action scenes were very engaging. All the movie's action scenes are really engaging. One complaint I've heard is that they go on too long, and I'm not really as much about that as much as I am. There wasn't a lot of consideration for what the implications of the action scenes are. I read something on BuzzFeed the other day where they compared everything that Clark and Zod do to Metropolis with some other, like, you know, with like 9/11 or Nagasaki even, and like kind of stack them up.
They gotta do. They really destroy the shit out of it.
I was going, well, where Superman's story is going to take place, because Smallville's a crater, and Metropolis is destroyed.
IHOP made it.
It's all going to take place in the IHOP.
So that was
made it. That's the Smallville shelter now. IHOP.
that was irksome a bit. I have no problem with performances. You know, I thought Zod.
No, yeah, we should. Yeah, is everyone in agreement that like Cavill did a fine job?
Oh yeah.
Cavill was
whatever. Go ahead.
Doolin?
Is he Cavill or Cavill?
No, I said yes. He did it. Yeah, I was just agreeing. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
do
And
believe he did a good job.
whatever gripes I have with the script, I would say like not his fault. His
No.
presence
Yeah.
is just fine for the part. I thought Crow was great. Like I said, I could have watched like. That could have, like, if it was a series, that could have been like the first season, was just his story.
I am a little foggy on how the man who's bred to be the world's greatest scientist is taking down the people that were bred to be the world's greatest soldiers. I know it's Russell Crowe, blah blah
Nick,
blah.
how can I
Hey, we
say
don't know.
this?
We don't know what his doctorate was in, though. He could have
That's
had
true.
a PhD in asthma.
Okay, doctor in martial arts.
Dr. McNinja Jarrell.
Nick, I don't know how to say it other than it's Russell Crowe, man.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with
Russell-
Rick there. It's Russell Crowe.
I'll allow it. I got bigger fish to fry.
He's the Cinderella Man. He's the master and commander of Krypton. He's
Gladiator.
He's all of it.
He's the
He's
whistleblower.
He is the Cinderella Man. Yes.
His shoes look great.
So we've been dancing around the elephant in the room. I feel and big
Jesus Christ, we have.
big huge spoiler alert. Everyone listening. So Superman.
It's a Superman movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Superman does something towards the end of the movie that
Oh, we're getting to that already. All right.
Well, yeah, let's. So because I feel like they missed the point of who Superman is in this moment. Because Superman, to me, I want to leave a Superman movie feeling hopeful. Superman is a big, like, I will find a way to make this work type of character. That's all throughout his mythos. And one thing...
He's the equal but antithesis to the Dark Knight, basically.
Yeah.
And which has led to some really great parallels in the comic book. So yeah, on that note, you want to leave whereas with the Dark Knight, you know, there's a lot of times where you feel that sense of dread. Everything's dark. With Superman, you want to go the other direction with it. You want to be inspired. You want to go out and feel like I can save the world too, even though you can't. But you want to feel that.
Exactly.
I can destroy a city too. I can destroy military technology too.
If there was never any doubt that Superman was an American, leveling an entire city to take out one terrorist, he is indeed an American.
Yes.
Yes.
But so,
well, hey, you know, Batman's really no different. I mean, don't forget Dark Knight when he finally gets the Batpod, and he just starts destroying cars in the parking lot. Even in 2008, you know. All I could think was like, Jesus Christ! I hope those people.
Those are dead cops, damn it!
No, not even that. Remember, it's those kids. They're like playing in the window, like bam, bam, and all of a sudden, this cars in front of them start exploding.
Oh, you mean in Batman Begins or the Dark Knight? The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight.
Okay, I gotcha. I'm on the same page.
Yeah, and he just starts driving through this parking lot, shooting at cars. I just kept thinking, like, Jesus, what an asshole! He's just destroying these people's.
Well, that's why
these people have no way to get. These people have no way to get home now.
Well, that's why there's no insurance plan for the Batman because of actions like that. Everything comes full circle.
Well,
it's too much of a
towards a little throwback to the old podcast.
Oh yeah.
At the very end.
Well, I was going to say.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
No. Go
we need to get back on Nick's original point. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
All right. So basically,
I wanted to add to it, all right, sorry.
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
This is awesome.
Go ahead.
We're doing a podcast with 4 people. It's going to get a little
We're
jumbled.
never doing this again.
It's a little funky. I was going to say, it's to Nick and Doolin's point that, like, yeah, you know, this movie does end with that dread thing. I mean, not dread, but it does end a little morosely. And Dark Knight, you know, Doolin said that it it was always had that dread, grim feeling. And I actually kind of have a gripe about that with the Nolan movies, is that they were consistently just like, what a thrilling bummer.
Yeah.
Like, they just were always just so depressing. And I always felt like, yeah, Batman's dark, but that doesn't mean that, like,
These movies can't be
it
fun,
has to be
adventurous.
a feeling of...
That doesn't mean these movies can't be fun and adventurous, and with some hope, too, because Batman is sort of a beacon of hope. I mean, he is out there fighting
he's
the good fight.
he's just a dark knight.
Yeah, his methods are different than Superman's.
Yeah, he's the Dark Knight, and everyone always focuses on the dark point, and they miss the night.
Like 89 Batman ends on a hopeful note, I feel like, and like a glorious...
Say again, Nick?
1989 Tim Burton's Batman, I think, ends on that, more of the right type of note on that regard, where you pan up the building and he's there with the signal.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah.
There's like glory in it.
Right, and in the old Superman, in the old 78 Superman, the famous, iconic, flying around, not the reversing of the world, but the actual flying over the planet and Williams' music pumping out.
But I think that Snyder kind of did a
Thank
good
you for your
job.
time, Doolin, but we're out of it.
I'm not Matt Damon, goddammit. No.
All right, sorry.
No, but I think that he did a really. I felt that it was a good nod to the John Williams Superman theme with the Hans Zimmer theme, and then seeing Superman flying overhead as kind of the beacon of hope. I felt
in the middle.
Yeah, no. Well, even like towards the end of it, like where he has the conversation with the Earth General, and where he says, "How do I know I can trust you?" He said, "You don't. I guess I'm just going to have to trust you." And he flies away, and it just I don't know. To me, it left me like if we can reach out, we can trust this person that has all of this power, because in real life our government would not do that. They would shit a brick. They would shit a brick if there was a dude out there who's like, "Don't worry, I'm your friend. Let me help you save you against this invasion." No, we're still going to try to control you. So to me, that was kind of that nod of hope. Like, it wasn't so much coming from Superman as it was coming from us, coming from Earth, because that was the whole point of it. Is Jor-El said, "In time, you will inspire them," and so that's where the hope comes from, not from Superman. He's just the one that leads the way, but it was in the people's reaction, despite the fact that half of the fucking city was leveled.
Yeah, and that, for me, is probably my biggest problem with the movie right there. I'll just go on record as saying I enjoyed this movie. I will put it out there that I had a bit of a bad movie-going experience when I saw it. There were a bunch of rowdy people in the audience that I had to turn in silence several times, including to the point getting security. So I think part of what that was is when I turned away from the nuisance behind me, I think I really dove in and embraced the escapism. So I could be blinded to some things, some flaws, but overall, I enjoyed the movie for the most part. I loved the scenes on Krypton at the beginning. I think that was fantastic. And that's one of the things I was concerned about with this film was the blending of the two styles. You have the fantastic stuff happening on Krypton, and with Superman, who he is as a hero and what he's able to do. And then you have the more down-to-earth moments, like with Pa Kent, and, him wandering the world and the Daily Planet and all that. I wasn't sure how those two styles were going to blend together, and I thought they actually did it really, really well with this movie. Again, I love the Pa Kent and Clark stuff. For me, I thought it was there. It did it for me personally. I didn't feel like it needed anything else. But my biggest complaint is something that we've all mentioned a couple of times now, and you and I, Rick, and you as well, Nick, have talked about this. The absolute destruction of Metropolis City, and that's what it is. It's the destruction. They level Metropolis. And there's never a
only
moment.
A third of it.
Yeah, only a third of it. The Daily Planet
it's a big city.
It's a really fucking big city, but some of it's still there, I guess. And there's not that moment that you get in Superman 2, which Rick you brought up, where Superman, just seeing the carnage around him, declares to Zod, "The people!" As in, like, we can't do this to the people. And tries to move the fight elsewhere. There's no acknowledgement of the destruction and the carnage that's happening. Millions of people die. Superman doesn't try and stop one piece of rubble from falling on one person.
Well, he can't. He's too busy stopping the source of that, though.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
but he's
if he
Superman,
runs around
though.
just trying to save everybody, more people are going to die as Zod just fucking rampages through downtown Metropolis.
Well, that was like that. I mean, I think we're thinking because like the effects moved so fast that like it would have seemed impossible to do so. But a filmmaker's in control of all that stuff. If they want to do a piece of drama where the scene is not about how many punches the guy is taking, but about Superman trying to balance taking down the bad guys and saving people who are being affected by their destruction.
He's got the weight of the world.
There is no excuse not to do that. It was done in Superman 2 with way less effects. So,
if I can interject real quick, like, if you think back to like Superman Returns, where a lot of people had so much beef with that movie, one of the scenes in it is like when Metropolis is coming apart and Brandon Routh is like swooping around just saving people. That was the display of his power. He's just going around saving people, and that pissed people off because once again, he didn't throw any punches in that entire damn movie. So that was him being the savior. So for this, they're like, all right, we're going to cut that shit out because that pissed the fanboys off. And we're just going to have him punch the shit out of Zod a bunch of times. So that's how they went with it.
All right, fine. But to me, I say fuck the fanboys.
Yeah.
They're retarded.
Absolutely.
Like, if Superman's character really comes down to punching, if Superman's character really comes down to punching, then what good is he? Like, why is he a character that has survived over a century now?
Because Rick, he can punch harder than anybody else. That's why.
And move people. Because he can punch. Because he's Hulk's brother. I forgot. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, and that kind of comes down to what I was saying before about I feel like they missed something about his character here. And
Doolin jokes, but he's probably not wrong about that note that the filmmakers got,
I think he's right. I think that's absolutely what it is. And I would have hoped that they could have found a balance between these two extremes.
Yes.
But outside of just the tons of action being thrown at you,
So no, you were saying there needs to be a balance, and I agree with you. Too much saving going on in Superman Returns, no real conflict for him other than the romance between himself and Lois and a vague notion of the past being hurtful. And in this one, too much conflict of him having to fight too much, but no moment for him to be a hero like he's supposed to be. I think that's what you were...
And maybe this kind of shoots back to what Rick was saying about being taught lessons on morality, because a couple reviewers have pointed this out too. Outside of, like, straight up killing somebody, which, I know I've argued with you a bit on this, Greg, that the rights and wrongs of what Superman does at the end with General Zod.
Right.
Outside of that, he does commit straight up genocide, or helps Earth commit straight up genocide.
That's what I have a problem with. I have a problem with the destruction of Metropolis and Smallville without even a consideration to the victims. I do not have a problem with him snapping General Zod's neck. I'm sorry, I don't.
I'm not talking about that genocide. I'm talking about the literal genocide where he destroys all the remaining Kryptonians.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That's pretty bad.
That's kind of bad, and I feel like that in the comics...
what's all the remaining Kryptonians? Like 6 of them?
Well, yeah, but I mean... That's still in the comics. You see him in the comics. You see him like really caring about his Kryptonian culture almost as much as he does his Earth heritage. He builds up the Fortress of Solitude. More. Yeah, I mean he learns Kryptonian. He can speak it to his long lost cousin and stuff, and he has this like shrine to Krypton in the Fortress of Solitude. I had a hard time with him just going like, oh yeah, I mean they're attacking Earth, so we can just kill them. That's not Superman.
Well. I might be defending Man of Steel in this one. I think that conflict was kind of... See, that's the thing. It's like that conflict about, like, his birth home versus his foster home, essentially, or adopted home, the adopted planet, whatever you want to call it. It seemed that was more important than displaying what makes Superman Superman, it seems, to the filmmakers in this movie. So I kind of didn't... I mean, like, the whole breaking of Zod's neck and then, like, getting rid of them, I feel like that conflict was playing through in the movie. But I think it would have benefited from a little more high drama and I think that's exactly what all it would be. It's just more drama, which isn't that why we're seeing this anyway, of him battling these people and having to also assess what's going on with the people around him. And that could have played right into it. Like, Zod could have been messing with them. It's like, you defend them, but you won't fight with me. Like, I'm your your birth blood or whatever. Like, I'm more family than any of these people to you.
And I kind of felt like there was that from Zod, where he didn't just like I liked that Zod as opposed to Terrence Stamp Zod, where he didn't just come at Superman guns blazing just because like you're Jor-El's son, so fuck you. No, he would be like, you're one of my people, so take up arms with me and be Krypton's last hope, because that's what you need to be. That's what your father wanted. When of course it wasn't, but that's the way that Zod.
It wasn't a twisted way. I mean, you did want Kal-El to be Krypton's beacon of hope, but not in the way that Zod is phrasing it. But talk about.
Well, I mean, not to knock Terrence Stamp or anything, and I know none of us kind of are. We all
not at all.
I love Terrence Stamp's performance.
No, he's fantastic.
Whatever goofiness and flaws. Yeah, whatever.
Zod!
Oh, calm down.
Zod!
Like whatever goofiness and flaws Superman and Superman 2 have, they're pretty like they're pretty like milestones in our childhood and stuff. But what they do with Zod doing is I definitely agree with. Like, they did the right thing. They made it more interesting.
Yes.
While still finding it very nicely done with him being a villain, but one that might have a point. He has his point. And like a great villain, you either got to be like extremely insane, like the Sheriff of Nottingham or the Joker, or you got to be extremely extremely tragic. And they do that really nicely with Zod. I will say that.
I've been bred
if you could take the hero, if you could take the villain and put him in a different light, and in that light, he is in fact the hero of the story, then you have it well written.
Yeah, like, it could very much be like William Shakespeare's General Zod.
I really liked Amy Adams as Lois, too. I felt like she was feisty. She was what?
She had a cute butt.
Think anybody
She does,
would argue that.
She's a hottie.
Cute ass, I said.
But if we're gonna nitpick on things in the movie, and I know this is probably just me. What? Can't they just dye her hair black? Like,
oh, come on! Who cares? She's a redhead.
I do. That's like an iconic thing.
Can't they dye Lawrence Fishburne's skin white? Harry isn't white, apparently.
I mean, we have the technology to do this, but
That change operation for the love of God, people.
Oh God.
But she seemed more like.
Was she really Jenny Olsen?
Yes.
What?
That was.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
To a girl.
I thought Stamper from.
That really is Jenny Olsen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought Stamper was supposed to be the stand-in.
I thought so
that,
too.
Like, if there was like.
But
I thought it was like if the Daily Planet was like a TV show on HBO, like Jenny was the girl that Lawrence Fishburne was fucking or something.
I kind of thought that too.
No, he would have left her in the rubble if that was the thing. It's like, well, there goes my problem right there. This was never going to be long term.
He's like, I'll save you if you erase those tapes. I'll save you if you erase those tapes. All right?
that was one of my big gripes with Superman Returns is they got like an 18-year-old to play Lois, where I'm like, well, Lois is like a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist.
Yeah.
She's like a feisty, grown-ass woman. And I felt like Amy Adams had that part down. So
Yeah.
She's a woman, yeah.
All right, well, thanks for joining us.
It's really interesting that you... It's really...
I'm kidding, Rick. I'm kidding.
It's really interesting, like, Nick mentions that, because... Well, no, about the hair, I'm serious. Like, as I was watching the movie, I felt ashamed how much it actually kind of did bother me, too. I really was looking at it. And it's not a legit gripe. It's just not like, you know what, 1 star less for Menace.
No.
Not black. Go
ahead.
I felt ashamed. I was like, God, it feels so stupid. Your hair should be black, and I'm like yelling at myself. I was like, shut up, Rick. It's not important.
Maybe your gripe with that is this, and whether you realize it or not, maybe I'm wrong here, but to me it felt a little bit too much. Like, and first of all, like, I will say that I enjoyed the changes they made, like the changes they made with Superman's costume, and then the recasting of Perry White to a black character, and making Jenny Olsen a woman.
That never mattered to me. That never mattered.
Yeah,
so, it doesn't, and it shouldn't. But and then like the other, and some of the other little changes they have here and there, like making Lois Lane have lighter hair instead of dark hair. Like whatever, it doesn't matter. But to me, I enjoyed the changes that they made because it gave it a little bit of a different feel to any sort of Superman movie or comic book that I've seen up until this point.
Yeah.
But it was almost like Snyder and Nolan sat down and they were like, what blatant things can we like obviously change to show everybody that we're making this a new Superman without messing with the mythos too terribly much. Like, we can't change things like he's from Kansas, and we can't change the name of the planet Smallville. You know, and we can't make him fight a giant spider in the third act. But
Kevin Smith.
But what we can do is we can make some of these changes.
I don't really consider. Yeah, I mean, I don't really consider like those things changes, like Perry White being cast by Lawrence Fishburne and the hair being red. Like, I'm half joking when I say that. It was just more like, yeah, you know, like the little twerp in me.
Yeah,
but, those are more like those probably seem more to me like Snyder, Goyer, and Nolan just being like, who gives a shit? So they were more like, who gives a shit? It's like they're not important to, like you said, the mythos and the meat of the characters, you know.
And if you don't mind,
how about that Fiora? My God.
She was fun character.
I was just gonna say, how about General or Lieutenant or? I want her to beat the shit out of me. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Who's that actress?
I don't know who that is actually.
No clue.
Hello?
We're all around computers. I'm sure we could look it up on IMDb.
She was sexy.
She was sexy. That was a sexy Fiora.
All right. So
forget it. Who cares?
If I could take the conversation.
Some money.
And, well, that too. If you got any, I'll take a 20 spot. But if I could take the conversation here and steer it in a little bit of a different direction, because I know we don't have a whole lot of time left.
Right.
But one thing that I did want to ask you guys about, and this is something that everybody's going to be speculating because we know that DC, Warner Brothers, has been talking about, we're going to make a Justice League movie, just like Marvel Studios made an Avengers movie. Like, okay.
Right.
So you feel like they've taken... But you know, and here's the thing, is like but if they want to copy that, I don't really feel like they took the steps necessary to build up to that within this movie. Like, they had all kinds of opportunities. Like, the only Easter egg you get in the entire thing is you see Wayne Enterprises written on the satellite in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
and
like
Lex
the only
Corp,
nod. Yeah, LexCorp, but that's within the Superman mythos, so that doesn't even count to me.
True.
Like, so the only thing you saw was Wayne Enterprises written on the satellite when Superman goes up into space and grabs the satellite or whatever. And it's not even, like, to me, like, that's not, you're not showing me the bigger world with that. And I felt like that's what they really needed to do. Like, they didn't have to do a whole lot with it, but I felt like they should have at least, like, given us a nod to what else is out there. So what are your thoughts on that?
I kind of think, I've thought about this for a while. I think that they should not copy Marvel's model if they're going to do it. If they're going to do a Justice League movie, they should just do a Justice League movie. I think that we're all, as a culture, well acquainted enough with Superman, Batman, maybe a little less with Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern, but they could just have them in the movie, and then if they want to do individual movies for them later, if the Justice League movie is a big success, they should do it that way. I think we all, at least, are familiar enough with their power sets that we wouldn't be like,
confused.
Oh, wait, why can he run fast? You know, like, it's fine. It's the Flash.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, and the reason why I feel like the Avengers was so successful, and why I personally believe that Warner Brothers should definitely follow this. Yeah, the other movies built, like, all the character development for those characters you needed were in their own individual movies leading up to that, and you didn't have to worry about focusing on character development for 6 people.
And I was going to be derogative and say because the movies setting them up were pretty shit, and they lowered the bar so nicely that Avengers just seems like the Citizen Kane.
Oh, not all.
No, those are fighting words, my son.
Yeah, not all of them. Some, but not all of them.
Fighting words.
I will burn this village to save it.
I know. No, some were not so good. Some I think were actually good.
Yeah.
So I think we have a bit of a disagreement with there.
But without going too much into the Marvel movies, because this is the Superman podcast.
True.
I'm just saying, I felt like what they did was necessary to having just a really fun action romp, which is what I think everybody will agree that's what Avengers was, and not having to worry about without character development, because that character development was already done for you in those previous movies. So I think those previous movies were necessary for making that a good film. So if you just throw these characters into a Justice League movie together, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as good without other movies to lead into it.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point.
Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead, Greg, and I'll go after you.
No, you go first, because honestly, all I could really say was that's a fair point, and then I had nothing. So you go right ahead.
Well, I feel like Warner Brothers is going about it all wrong. Okay, let's talk about, like, just real quickly. Okay, Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, who the fuck ever heard of him other than Marvel people, and Black Widow, no one ever heard of her, including Marvel people at times. Like, none of those superheroes equal to Batman and Superman. I feel like they don't need to be rushing to do a Justice League movie because they already have the two most powerful and famous superheroes right there in their wheelhouse. So I feel like they shouldn't be scrambling so crazily to, like, fit in Green Lantern, fit in the Flash, fit in Wonder Tits and everybody. You know, just like you already have the two kings. They're there. Is anyone really going to, like, disagree with me and say that if they really, like, okay, it seems like they're going to be rebooting Batman, but that's still not confirmed. If they really, like, decided to do a movie which is Batman and Superman together, that audiences, if it looked great, wouldn't just go apeshit and make it a $1 billion worldwide success? Like, are we really like that? No, that only equals $300 million.
Green Lantern is the key. God damn it, the movie will fail without Green Lantern.
He's the green glue to the whole relationship.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think Justice League needs to even be talked about, right? Just to get Batman and Superman in a movie to me would be far equatable, far more, far bigger than the Avengers. In terms of that kind of iconography, just like, boom, there they are on the same fucking screen.
Well, that's a fair point, and, maybe they should just go ahead then and do a Batman-Superman crossover movie and forget the rest of the league for right now. And this is the reason why I say that, is because they keep trying and falling on their face. They made this god-awful pilot for a Wonder Woman TV show, and I watched 20 minutes of it, and my friend was like, can we please stop watching this? This is just awful. She had, like, 3 separate aliases.
Yeah, I say make it kind of interesting, and, like, maybe some of these superheroes don't need their own movies.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe Wonder Woman,
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, there you go, yeah. Maybe Wonder Woman gets introduced in a Superman movie.
Yes.
Exactly.
I wouldn't mind that, personally. I mean, I'm not a big comic book guy, so I'd be down for that.
But then there's all sorts of, like, legalese business. I guess, well, no, you could still do it. The thing is that with Wonder Woman, she has it written, her creator basically has this stipulation with her character. She cannot be a cameo character in anything. She has to be a main character in anything she's in.
Wow.
Fine, Superman can have a love interest.
Yeah, I'm into it.
What happened to Lois? No!
She dyed her hair black.
I don't like the black hair, Lois. Get out!
So jumping
I'm
back
going
to
with the other black-haired girl.
Yeah.
She's authentic.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
Jumping back to Man of Steel for a sec, I have to ask an important question. Why does it take Clark 15 years of wandering around and being a bum to, like, decide he should get a job and try to integrate into society? I know he's looking for signs of Krypton and stuff, but, like...
Did he think he was going to find them in Canada?
I kind of burst out laughing when at the end of the movie he's like, you know what, I'm going to take a job where I can get my ear to the ground. It's like, you can't do that, Clark. You're only qualified to work on oil rigs and wash dishes and shit now. You didn't go to college or anything?
I was thinking that myself, too. Like, he becomes a journalist.
Yeah.
How the hell do you do that? When did you go to college?
That is the easiest paper
You know
to
why
get a job.
You know why they did that? You know why they did that kind of progression for this?
To ram the Jesus mythology down our throats because he's 33 years old.
And it worked in Batman Begins.
True.
Well, yeah.
They just slapped down the script for Batman Begins, put Superman in there. Okay.
They're like, what worked? They're like, what worked? Okay, here we go.
He climbed a mountain. He wants
He
something
traveled
like that.
the world. He was on the Deadliest Catch for 3 seasons.
Exactly. Pretty much.
Right, yeah.
Pretty much.
He created the perfect storm.
Oh, God. So, guys, we're running a little long here. I think we should maybe wrap it up with some final thoughts. We'll start with...
do everybody, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's gonna get a go around on their final thoughts. Rick, we'll start with you, then we'll move on to Doolin, and then Nick, and then I'll go last. So,
Okay.
Final thoughts, Rick, go.
It's probably good I go first because mine might be depressing.
Okay.
Like everybody else, I was excited, open-minded for this one for Man of Steel, but overall, and a lot to like, especially the sci-fi elements, which were, I think I mentioned this to Greg, not in the podcast, but off the podcast, that the design was sort of like H.R. Giger, but friendly.
Okay,
Like it wasn't, threatening H.R. Giger. He's the designer of the alien stuff and all that. And also, I noted that the cryotubes or whatever they sent off General Zod and his people, they looked like fat cocks.
They did.
So that was a little weird, but I guess they did that because they were a bunch of dicks.
Love it.
Anyway, but either way, like the sci-fi elements, I agree, Greg, were like amazing. I thought the performances were very nice. They were very good. Whatever gripes I have with Cavill's character, I don't think it's his fault. It's sort of like Brandon Roth. It's like, you're just not given the right stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think there's something vital missing to the movie's portrait of Superman, and that's his heart. That's what makes him not Superman because he can leap tall buildings in a single bound and because he can go faster than a locomotive, is because of what he does for people and what people mean to him and what right and wrong mean to him. The kind of dichotomy means something, and this movie, I feel, really, really dropped the ball. As a result, because that's not there and that drama's not there, the action scenes do begin to feel tedious, and I think that's why. It's because we're watching all of this death and destruction. We're watching a movie that takes itself very seriously, but it doesn't have the guts to really take itself seriously by actually showing you the collateral damage. I'm not saying it needed to be gory and like Superman's holding some baby's head and it's like, God damn, he's hot, or something like that.
Just holding a baby's head. I love it. Oh, look what I found.
Well, he like picked it up. He's like, "What's this?" Oh! But like, just any sort of concern that like, geez, this battle's really creating a lot of horror or damage. I feel like that would have added more drama to the battles as opposed to it being just a slugfest. But I think that's endemic of where we're at in superhero movies. It's a pretty immature genre, and it's 30 years on. And it's still just pleasing 13-year-olds who just want to see Mortal Kombat on the screen, essentially. So, and I feel like Man of Steel doesn't really break any boundaries. It didn't go the distance in really trying to create a great Superman. I think it was demographic notes, what worked before, how do we make this exciting and visual, and they definitely achieved all marks on that. And I'm sure they paid everybody very well to be in it. So, overall, I think it's a pretty disappointing and sort of like next affair, for me.
Okay, fair enough. Now, me personally, I went in, as you guys know, anybody who's been friends with me for a long time, I am and always have been a huge Superman fan, and I get a lot of grief for that because people always say, like, oh yeah, you just like Superman because it's just, like, no, I legitimately am a Superman fan. Like, yes, I've read the comic books, like any origin story that's come out, I've picked it up and I've read through it. So, I've got tons of Superman crap laying around my house, probably a lot more than a 31-year-old man should have. So, that being said, I've been really disappointed over the years at the movies that Hollywood has kind of turned out for Superman. Like, I enjoyed the other ones when I was younger, but that being said, they don't hold up. And I really went into this one with high hopes, hoping that I could just sit down and be entertained and see the Man of Steel soaring overhead and hear this new, obviously it wasn't going to be John Williams' theme, but that was fine because we needed a new theme. So we have this brilliant score composed by Hans Zimmer, who I've loved anything that he's done up until this point. I thought it really fit the bill for that. So we had super battles, we had, just enough of the story between Superman and Lois, and just enough of the relationship between him and his Earth parents, and found out a little bit about where he came from, and we had super battles. And then I felt I left on a good note. I was happy. It missed the mark on a few points, but for me, I wanted to enjoy this movie, and I did. Being a huge Superman fan, I was not disappointed. So that's where I'm going to leave my final thought.
Cool. As a counterpoint to that, I will say I've been a little nervous about. I guess I'm not traditionally been the biggest Superman fan over the years, and it's really only been like my favorite moment in Superman Returns. I think is when
Lex Luthor stabs him.
Yeah, when Lex Luthor stabs him and beats the crap out of him. I just really like seeing, and it's because he's like always been held to this ideal that almost seems like stuffy. That I like to see him knock down a peg when someone like Batman or somebody does that. But in the past, like I would say maybe, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, I've read a couple Superman stories that have made me go like, oh wait, no, I get it. I get the appeal. One of them being All-Star Superman, which they turned into a really good animated movie. And to me,
that was a good movie, yes.
Yeah. And to me, Superman is about like leaving the theater with a feeling of hope and inspiration. And I do feel like while the movie was entertaining, it did miss the mark on that, and I think that there are some key moments where Superman as a character had choices that he could make that could have shown us that he is the person that will find a way. He's the son of a super scientist, the greatest scientific mind of his planet, and he's somebody that can think outside of the box and come up with solutions that don't just involve punching and neck snapping. And in that regard, the movie fails a bit, I think. Because it's not even like these things were solvable. It's like after that moment, the like no moment, he could have like gone. We could have had a moment where like Lois is comforting him, and maybe he realizes, wait, I have the Codex inside me. I can rebuild Kryptonian culture. Maybe like I just wanted something. Give me something that shows that you give a crap about that side of your heritage, and you're not just like torpedoing it all.
He didn't even give a crap about his orphan side, like
right. But so to kind of play, to point out some successful things about the movie, it was nice to see super battles. It's and as much as I don't want to contradict myself because it was nice in Superman Returns to see him saving people. I think probably the best scene in the movie is actually when he saves the airplane.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great scene. But it was nice to see some super punching and see him like get into a super fight. So it was great that Kryptonians were brought in, but Kryptonite was not brought in. That was great. His relationship with Lois was great, and I was totally fine with some of the changes they made to that dynamic of her knowing who he is. So there's successful things about the movie. And I will watch more of it. I think Cavill is good. I think the creative team overall makes a watchable movie. I want them to round out who he is a little bit better and the feeling that you should get, the tone of the movie. I felt was lacking.
Well, for my money, they've laid down what I like to think is more than passable groundwork for a future series with these specific characters and the way they've been presented to us now. I have not been the biggest Superman fan growing up. I've not been the biggest comic book fan growing up. I like some comic books. I like adaptations of comic books into cartoons and movies and such. But I'm not a diehard Superman fan by any stretch. That's one of the reasons why I didn't mind that he snapped General Zod's neck, is the fact that didn't bother me because that had not been established in the movie that he would never do something like that. That was not a factor that all of a sudden he decided to do that. And I know in the comics he's supposed to be...
I wonder why that wasn't established.
Oh, shut up. I know what you're saying. But for me, some would argue, but in the comics he would never kill. I would really love somebody to prove to me right now that Superman has never killed anybody in the comics ever. And that being said, even if he hasn't, he probably will in the future.
I looked it up. It's only been in Elseworlds that he's done it.
Whatever. The comic books change.
And Alan Moore.
And Alan Moore, yeah. I mean, Rick, you've said this before. Comics change every day. To argue that they got this person...
Yeah, you're absolutely right, yeah.
Yeah, to argue that they got this person's thing wrong here and there, that's all well and good. That may be right now. That might not be right, 2 years from now when the comic itself decides to change it. Comics have been changing over years and years and years and years and years.
But
nothing's the same since the beginning.
The problem with that as a comic book fan is that it's what happens in the movies now is influencing what happens in the comics. And to me, if they're getting it wrong on the screen, that's a problem for me, because now they're going to do something wrong in the comics.
That is a fair point. But again, just the neck snapping thing didn't bother me, because that was not, that was not something established that he would never do. Morality, teaching aside, again, so it didn't bother me. The destruction of Metropolis, that bothered me. Yes, I agree with what Rick and you and some other people have been saying. That it would have been nice to see Superman be a hero in some of those scenes, as opposed to just fighting. I do agree with that. Overall, I have a fairly positive outlook on the movie. I had an enjoyable time watching it, despite the bad theater-going experience that I had. The stuff on Krypton was fantastic. It was immersive, and I couldn't believe that they were still able to make it seem like the same movie when you left Krypton and you got to Earth. I didn't feel like I had been displaced, like, those were two separate movies. It was still the same movie, and I respected the blending of those two styles together. I know it sounds like it's an easy thing to do, but a lesser movie could have fucked that up, and the movie would have looked like shit and felt wrong, but it didn't feel wrong. The moments with Costner were great. So overall, I left with a fairly positive outlook on the movie. I have problems with it, yes. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imaginations, but perhaps within the hands of some different writers down the road, maybe they could fix some of those problems. Because again, I think they've got some good foundation with which to build on, and so I would be interested to see future movies. Some good foundation to build on, and damn, he destroyed that whole city.
The whole city.
A whole damn city. That's pretty wrong. Oh my god. So that's
I think whether you liked it.
Pretty much.
Whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, I think the one thing that we all can agree on is the fact that Superman, the Man of Steel, has officially been reinvented for a new generation, and Cavill is it. Cavill, the torch has been handed off, and we can look forward to seeing more films with Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel. So here it is now, 75 years later. Man of Steel is still going strong. The character is still relevant, I feel. So that's saying something. Superman was the first superhero, and I think he's going to be around for a while.
Absolutely.
I might not be with the superheroes, gentlemen. That's for sure.
Fair enough. I understand your gripes and complaints, and I'm kind of with you on a lot of them too. But I think we're running a little long, so I think we're going to wrap things up. Everybody that's listening, thank you so much for tuning in to this very special podcast. All two of you. Oh, come on.
Thanks, Mom.
I think there's at least... Nice.
Thanks, Scruffy, my dog.
Nice. But again, thank you all for joining us. I'm your host, Greg McIver. With me is...
Nicki Boom Boom.
And we also have...
Doolin Dalton from NerdtopiaCast.
Thank you, and...
And Rick Rodriguez. And thank you, everybody, the host of Critics Crossing, Rick Rodriguez. We have...
What? Are you from Bizarro World?
Me and no thank no for two like movies.
Salmon Grande, born on a Monday. Okay, guys.
That was fun, guys. Thanks a lot, and maybe we'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time, guys.